And so the FDA recently granted priority review for Ide-Cel, a BCMA-directed CAR T-cell immunotherapy for relapsed refractory myeloma. And the results of the KarMMa study were recently presented at ASCO. Can you tell us about this therapy and highlight some of the findings from KarMMa?
Yeah, the BCMA CAR T-cell Ide-Cel is the formerly known as formerly known as BB2121, which initially had very nice phase 1 data a couple of years ago presented, and then the KarMMa study was sort of the pivotal phase 2 trial, which treated about 128 patients with this CAR T-cell product. Again, these are patients who are triple class exposed, had at least 3 prior lines of treatment, actually went into the study with progressive disease. So it was a very, very sick population. Of those, they were able to manufacture for, I think, all but 1 patient, so really good manufacturing rate. And these patients were given lymphodepleting chemotherapy with fludarabine and cyclophosphamide, and thereafter received their CAR T cells. What they showed in the data from ASCO was an overall response rate of 73%. However, it's important to know that these patients actually were treated in different groups. Some groups got a dose of 150 million cells, some patients got 300 million cells, and another group got 450 million cells. And it's important to know this because the patients who are in the 450 group actually had a higher overall response rate, greater than 80%, 83%, I believe. And it's important because now the dose that's probably going to go forward for FDA approval is going to be the 450. And I think that's also important because the progression-free survival for this dose was almost a year, which is very similar to what they had shown in their phase 1 data. So I think this gives an option for people who are considering a therapy that maybe they could not get other therapy after that for a year. And patients might want to be therapy-free for a year. This might be a good option for those patients.
Okay. And the FDA also recently granted priority review for Melflufen, an investigational peptide drug conjugate in combination with dexamethasone for refractory disease. Can you talk about this agent and some of the findings from the Horizon clinical trial?
Yeah, so Melflufen is melphalan, sort of a lipophilic type of melphalan, and is also requires an immunopeptidase to cleave it from this compound. So essentially, the melflufen can enter the cells very easily because they can get through the lipophilic cell membrane. But once in there, they require immunopeptidases to allow for cleavage, and then the active metabolite or the active ingredient of melphalan to then go and produce this damage. We know that melphalan is a very effective drug for multiple myeloma, but this is actually specifically targeting myeloma cells because these plasma cells, which are the malignant cells, actually have a higher amount of immunopeptidase intracellularly. So these cells are actually specifically targeted with this drug, which is, I think, kind of a unique mechanism. It's not relying on antibody or any extracellular targets. It's actually relying on an intracellular protein or enzyme that is present in these myeloma cells. And so most recently in the Horizon trial, they were able to show around a 30% response rate, again, in very heavily pretreated patients. And I think 30% is the bar. You have to make that bar now, and that's why I think it's going to go forward. But I think where melflufen will have even better response and or utility will be in combination with other drugs that have a different mechanism of action. For example, a targeted immunotherapy, because you'd be looking at the myeloma cell in 2 different ways or working on it in 2 different ways.